You are locked into another edition of Step in the Arena. I'm Bobby C. He's Edgar Burgos. We are live on Twitter. Step in the Arena on the Cruise Control Podcast Network in collaboration with Hard to Guard Media.
This guy has made it through rounds playing the style that he plays.
He named every one. It's like this guy named all 5 of my game-winning shots from 2008, 2009.
I played with two of the most exciting players ever to play the game, Allen Iverson and Vince Carter.
Shout out to the Twitter faithful. You can also catch the show on YouTube or on audio replay, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcast. Ed, it is great to step in any arena tonight that is not outdoors here in the Big Apple. The snow's still very much here in New York City, and I refuse, Ed. I refuse to shovel. I'm not doing it.
You have to shovel, man.
I'm not doing it, man. I'm leaving my car buried.
You don't want to shovel, and I want to move.
We should both move.
I love New York, but I can't stand the winter in New York.
We can do the podcast anywhere, my friend.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
I'm pretty sure it would be better to do in a much warmer climate because right now, not the place to be in New York with all the snow on the ground. No doubt about it.
Well, it feels good. I mean, I'm warm right now. I'm watching the Dallas Golden State game, and Dallas is losing again, which is makes me happy. And you know why? Because we own Dallas' number one pick.
I do know one place this weekend that is warm where I would probably like to be. And I'm pretty sure that our first guest tonight would like to speak about it because I know where he's from. So without further ado, I wanted to bring in Alex Kennedy, Chief Content Officer at basketballnews.com. And if his jersey doesn't say what his rooting interest is in the Super Bowl, I'm sure he will tell us tonight. For those, of course, that are listening in, he's wearing the Tom Brady jersey. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. First of all, you have an amazing voice. You have a great radio voice. I had to throw that out there. And then, yes, I am rooting for my Tampa Bay Buccaneers this weekend. I've been a Bucs fan since I was a kid, so it's been nothing but misery. And they find horrible ways to lose and torture me. And if you had said a year ago that we'd be in the Super Bowl, I would have said you're crazy. So this is just kind of surreal still, but I'm excited.
Alex, Ed always says that I dominate the show, so I might as well ask, I guess, the real first question here. I do appreciate the love as well for my voice. Ed is the one with the looks. I'm the one with the better pipe. But I wanted to ask you, I got a chance to be part of the Super Bowl media availability this week, and everybody wants to talk to Tom Brady. Tom is 43 years old, and he says that he can still see himself playing beyond the age of 45. So what do you think about that as a guy that is rooting for Tampa Bay this Sunday?
I've been blown away with his play. The throws that he's been able to make this season, it's been incredible watching him. And that's, entering the season as a Bucs fan, again, I was thinking, okay, well, he's 43. What's he really going to be able to do, especially by the end of the season? I mean, we saw what happened with like Drew Brees this year, for example, where he was really struggling to complete passes beyond 10, 15 yards. So I didn't really get my hopes up initially. I was thinking, yeah, this sounds fun. It's going to be great. But is he going to struggle? And there have been some games, especially late in games or cold weather games, where it seems like his arm, either it tightens up or gets tired or something. I mean, look at the Packers game where he started throwing picks late and looked like a different player in the second half versus the first half. But I mean, clearly his TB12 method works, and I've been blown away with his play. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the guy clearly takes care of his body. He puts his nutrition first. It's amazing to see what he's doing durability wise and longevity wise. And I will say one thing too, the way that he's kind of adjusted his game, he doesn't take sacks. He does a really good job of getting the ball out quickly. The Bucs offensive line has been incredible this year when it comes to protecting him. That was one of the big question marks entering this year. Tristan Wirfs has been great. Donovan Smith has been great. Some of these guys that people were kind of unsure of have really stepped up. So he does a good job of protecting himself as well. So it's possible. I think if anyone can do it, it's him. Now, Father Time is undefeated. So at some point we're going to see that Peyton Manning type season toward the end where he struggles. As a Bucs fan, I'm hoping we can delay that as long as possible, but it wouldn't surprise me if he played another 2 years, 3 years, something like that.
I think it's
You know?
great that you bring up Peyton Manning. I'm going to steal some more time from you here, Ed, since you always say that I steal the thunder. Just one more question. I'm going back to back with Alex here. But quickly about Brady just making that 10th Super Bowl appearance. I thought it was interesting that so many people in our generation often say that Peyton Manning is the better quarterback, right? So Peyton only played in 4 Super Bowls. Since he retired, Tom Brady has played in 4 Super Bowls. I think that's a remarkable stat.
It's crazy. I mean, I think one thing we always saw in New England was he didn't get all the credit. Obviously, people would credit the system, and there were some times where the defense was super dominant. Now, granted, Brady did it without some great weapons too in the past, which doesn't get talked about enough. The fact that he was out there with some wide receivers that weren't very talented, that he was elevating quite a bit. Now this year with the Bucs, he has great weapons. I mean, Godwin, Evans, obviously Gronk. They bring in Antonio Brown. Even some of the backup receivers like a Scotty Miller stepped up in huge moments. Tyler Johnson has played well as a rookie. So he has great weapons now, but I think this one is really big for Brady because it's away from Belichick. It's away from New England to be able to show a team that a year ago was struggling and, again, didn't even seem like a playoff squad with Jameis Winston committing 30 turnovers, 30 interceptions, to take this team to the Super Bowl. That just says so much for his legacy. Even if they don't win it, to be able to take this team in the first year, a year that was so strange without OTAs and a normal training camp and, a chance to really bond off the field or get on the same page, no preseason, to be able to take this team in year 1 to the Super Bowl just says so much about his legacy and his impact on an organization. And you talk to the players too. I mean, Bobby, you just mentioned you were talking to the guys. The impact he's had off the field too, as far as leadership and kind of elevating everyone, making everyone smarter when it comes to their football IQ, watching film with these guys and really coaching them up. You've heard so many players talk about that aspect of it too. So it's not even just his on-field impact that, the touchdowns and the great plays, it's what he's kind of brought to the culture and helped all these young guys. And Devin White, even on the defense, was saying that he kind of has stepped up and said, I want to be the Tom Brady of the defense and, be the leader and make everyone buy in and have everyone have the same goals. So these guys have been learning from him all year long. And I think, to be, that stat is incredible. The fact that he's been in so many Super Bowls, I don't think there's any question that he's the greatest quarterback of all time. I know some people might debate that. If he wins this Super Bowl, I don't think there's any debate. I mean, I think that conversation is over.
No, that's a fact. And one person you haven't mentioned, first, that defensive secondary of the Buccaneers is legit. And you have a guy, defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, who was the defensive coordinator for the Giants when we beat the Patriots. So you have an advantage there on the defensive side.
Yeah, so it's interesting, on our defense has been so up and down. I say our like I'm on the team, but it's been so up and down throughout the season because there have been times in the beginning of the year where the secondary was getting burnt and it would just look really ugly. Carlton Davis, he was playing well at times, but then last time they played against Tyreek Hill, he gave up 200 plus yards and 3 touchdowns. In the first quarter, most of those yards were in the first quarter. So I mean, there have been times where the defense has played well, and then you look at Sean Murphy-Bunting, another guy that has been very up and down. And Bucs fans at the beginning of the year were calling for him to get cut and traded, like they were over this guy. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the year, he's intercepting everyone and playing his best football. And he's even said, "Look, I got hot. I just got to keep this going somehow." So I mean, their secondary at times has been a weakness, and then during the playoffs, they've been able to create turnovers. They've been able to, tackle really well. Antoine Winfield has been amazing as a rookie. Antoine Winfield Jr. has been incredible. Not only being coverage and creating turnovers, but also stopping the run. I mean, this Bucs defense has been historically good against the run. They've played so many stud running backs and shut them down. And what that does is, other teams now, they kind of just go into the game and stop running the ball. They don't even try to run against the Bucs. We've kind of seen that. So they just try to attack through the air. So it's put a ton of pressure on the secondary, but those guys have answered the challenge and they've really responded. So that's going to be the key. I mean, obviously we know this Chiefs offense has so many weapons. So can they shut down Tyreek Hill, who dominated them in Week 12? If they put too much attention on, Tyreek Hill, what's going to happen with Travis Kelce and some of these other weapons? It's the big question. I think that's really the matchup that, will determine this game. Can the defense slow them down? I think it helps that the Chiefs' offensive line is depleted and the Bucs have one of the best pass rushes in the league with Shaq Barrett, JPP, Sue, and I think that's a huge, matchup that maybe helps the Bucs because it helps the secondary if they're going to be putting pressure on Mahomes all day. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers throughout the season. If you look at his stats, there was only one other game where he was sacked 5 times. Most games he was only sacked, 1 time, twice, but they had 11 knockdowns and 5 sacks. I mean, they were just in the backfield all day long causing problems for him. So if they can put that kind of pressure on Mahomes and if they can sack Mahomes, that's going to help the secondary quite a bit. So I don't know. I've been overthinking about this game for like 2 weeks, if you can't tell. So I'm just, I don't know. I'm excited for it to be here, but hopefully the secondary can play well.
There's only one quarterback that has beaten Patrick Mahomes in the postseason, and that is Tom Brady. That's another good stat, I would say, coming into the game.
I mean, what a matchup, Mahomes versus Brady. I mean, we've been spoiled we had Drew Brees versus Brady, Aaron Rodgers versus Brady. I mean, there have been so many great quarterback matchups throughout this postseason. So, it's gonna be fun, man. This Chiefs team is so much fun to watch too. Like, they're usually a team that I'm rooting for when they're not playing against my Bucks. So, it's fun watching them play. It's fun having their guys in fantasy football. So, I mean, I definitely don't want to face them, to be clear, because I'm terrified of them. And it's very possible too. Like we talked about, me being all excited. It's very possible come Sunday night, I'm just devastated and Patrick Mahomes is destroying us. Like I absolutely acknowledge that's a possibility because they're that good. But I don't know. I think we can surprise people. The other thing I'll say about the Bucks too is this is the first time that we've been at full strength all season long, because at the beginning of the year, you had Chris Godwin injured, Mike Evans injured, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones, Vita Vea. Then they signed Antonio Brown. He's had some injuries. Last week, it was Antoine Winfield. At the beginning of the postseason, it was Devin White. You go through the roster, they've had so many injuries. This 2 weeks off is so important for the Bucks, and it's allowed everyone to kind of get healthy. Now, there's some question about whether Jordan Whitehead will play or not, but it sounds like Winfield and Antonio Brown will play. So I think this is the first time, too, that we've kind of been at full strength or really close to it. And no one's really talking about that aspect of this either.
Ed's taking the Chiefs, so.
No, I would say I just want to see the game go to the last possession. If Brady wins, I'm happy for Brady. If Mahomes wins, I get it. You know what I'm saying? My thing is, like, I think it's going to be a close game due to the fact that, you have 2 offensive linemen for the Chiefs, one that's definitely out and the other one that's injured. So that's going to, I think it's going to balance out. And I think it's going to go down to the wire.
Yeah, I mean, if they can't run the ball again, the Bucks, I can't stress this enough, have been so good against the run to the point that teams just abandon it. So, and we know Clyde Edwards-Helaire was injured. I'm not sure what, is he going to be 70%, 80%? Like what's Clyde Edwards-Helaire going to bring to the table? If they can't run the ball and the Bucks know that they're going to be passing over and over again. Now, granted, you don't want the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands, but that just only helps the pass rush even more because it's kind of predictable. So, yeah, I think the injuries to the Chiefs offensive line, they've been dealing with issues on the offensive line all season and moving guys around. So that absolutely is something to watch. I think that's a huge thing that will impact this game. So, yeah, I think it'll be closer than people think. From talking to people, it seems like everyone's picking the Chiefs, and I get it. I absolutely get it. But I think it could be closer than people think.
We're speaking with Alex Kennedy, Chief Content Officer at BasketballNews.com. I know Ed wanted to ask you some questions about basketball news, and since I always tend to steal his thunder, I figured I would give him a great introduction. Now coming to the microphone, Edgar Burgos.
No, I wasn't just talking. Alex, you've been around, been writing for, years. What made you start Basketball News?
Yeah, I was at Hoops Hype and USA Today Sports, and I loved it over there. Those guys were awesome. And then I heard about this basketballnews.com opportunity, and basically they allowed me to kind of come in as a co-owner. And what they told me was, they wanted to build kind of a hybrid site where they have top journalists, but then they also have players. Because, right now, player-driven content is blowing up with not only the Players Tribune, but you have JJ Redick's podcast, CJ McCollum's podcast, All the Smoke, all these podcasts are blowing up. So they basically said they wanted to kind of have a hybrid where you have the journalists and the players. And they kind of said, look, you can come in and just build your own team. We'll give you a budget and you can do what you want. So I kind of compare it to like a GM that has a bunch of cap space. And they said, go recruit people. So it's been so much fun. So we've been able to add a bunch of players. Kenyon Martin has a podcast on our network. It's Kenyon and Jadakiss, which has been a lot of fun. Those guys are hilarious and have tons of chemistry.
The second episode with Jadakiss, right?
Yeah, so yeah, Kenyon launched the podcast, and then Jadakiss, we just added him. So yeah, it's a recent addition, but they actually just dropped their second episode, and it's been great, man. They have so much chemistry. They go back many years. They are good friends. So they always talk sports and stuff anyway. Now they're just doing it in front of a microphone. And then we have Atan Thomas, James Posey, Vinny Del Negro, and a number of others. We're continuing to add players too. And then on the journalism side, it's myself, Nikias Duncan, Spencer Davies, Chris Sheridan. There's a lot of different writers. So that's what kind of drew me to it. It was very ambitious. They not only wanted to put out, articles, but also have this podcast network. They want to get into long form content like web series and documentaries, things like that. So I was really excited, and we launched in August. So, I mean, this has happened very quickly. It's only been 5-6 months since we launched, but it's been so much fun.
Alex, Ed wants to just end the NBA season right now and give the championship to the Lakers. I was hoping for the fans here in the Big Apple that might not be able to count on the Knicks. You could maybe tell them why the Brooklyn Nets might be able to win an NBA championship. Sell me on the Nets winning it this year.
I mean, look, the offensive firepower, I don't have to tell you how incredible it is. The big thing is, can they figure it out defensively? I mean, that's been the big question. Obviously, with a team like this, they're going to be able to score 1 million points. I mean, they have the best offensive rating of all time since coming together. The only problem is, as I'm sure you guys saw the stat that was floating around there, they also have the worst defensive rating of all time since the Harden trade. So can they figure it out on defense? I mean, it's going to be impossible to guard Harden, KD, and Kyrie. And my thing too is, like, once they get acclimated, we're seeing them dominate right now offensively, and they're not even on the same page yet. It's so hard to introduce new focal points and get those guys acclimated, especially in a year like this where, because of the condensed schedule, you have limited practice time. A lot of teams aren't doing walkthroughs in the morning of games. Guys can't really hang out off the court and bond because of the COVID rules. It's not like a normal year where guys are going out to eat and hanging out at each other's houses and stuff like that. They really can't do that because of COVID and the protocols. So it's a weird year, especially to try to get so many new pieces acclimated. It's also Steve Nash's first year as a head coach. So some of those things are make it even tougher and are a bit concerning. But at the end of the day, there's no team that's more talented on paper. If they figure it out, this team is absolutely going to be scary. And if they can get hot at the right time, entering the playoffs, this team can definitely go on a run. There's no question. They're also a team to watch as far as adding talent come buyout season at the trade deadline. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, they don't really have any trade assets. They have some. They don't have a lot at this point, admittedly, but the buyout market is where I think they really are going to be able to make a mark. Obviously, we've already seen them make a few free agent additions like Iman Shumpert, Norvel Pell, to try to address the defense and especially the front court with Pell. The question is, with the buyout season, what big center becomes available? Is there a big front court player that they could potentially add that can help them on the defensive end, especially? That's the big thing. I mean, last year, no one was really talking about Markieff Morris or Reggie Jackson or some of these guys that ended up getting bought out and that became difference makers. So we'll see who's bought out, but that's going to be a big thing for them.
Ed has offered his services to play center, Alex, for the Nets.
Kenyon has too. Kenyon's like, just give me a call. I can give you some good fouls, some hard play, a couple rebounds. Atan Thomas has done the same thing. Those guys haven't gotten called yet, but they're down.
No, so like the rumor, I was gonna say the rumor has been that Andre Drummond from Cleveland might get bought out. That's been like the rumor. Will it even be fair if that happened?
Yeah, honestly, he would be huge for them. I mean, he obviously is a great rebounder, and he's been playing really well this year. Andre Drummond in a contract year is always very motivated and plays much better. But I just can't see why the Cavs would do that. That's my thing. I'm not sure they will buy him out. I know they have a lot of centers. They have Jared Allen. They have JaVale McGee. They have a number of big men over there, but I don't know. I unless he's leaving significant money on the table and there's a huge financial reason to do it, I'm not sure why that makes much sense for them. I feel like, he's going to want as much of that money as he can get. There's a reason he opted in. So I feel like that's I'm not sure if that'll happen. I don't think the Cavs will trade him because he doesn't have much trade value. We kind of saw that last year at the deadline when they were able to acquire him from Detroit for very, very little. So I don't know. I'm not sure how that situation plays out. Sometimes you see a team will buy a player out to do a favor for the agent and make the player friendly move so that other players and agents kind of see that. So maybe that's a little bit of a motivation, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if he's one of those guys that's bought out. But yeah, I mean, it would be unfair if he joined them. That would be ridiculous. He would help them immediately. But that's the thing. Like any center that's bought out, you have to imagine that the Nets will be at the top of their list because of the minutes there, the opportunity, the role that'll be provided, and then the chance to compete for a championship alongside that big three. Like, I mean, it's like and it's also a big market. So like every year, usually you hear, oh, who's going to get bought out? And then the two LA teams are always mentioned as the top contenders for them because it's LA, they're a championship contender, they have a chance to play minutes there. But I mean, you'd have to imagine any big man will have the Nets atop their list if they get bought out.
Bobby for the last 2 weeks has been preaching to the Nets bring in Tyson Chandler. Tyson Chandler's like 40-something years old. And go ahead, Bobby, what you got to say about that?
Tom Brady's 43, Ed. I mean, I think Tyson's still got something left.
I mean, you look at like the free agent market, Dwayne Dedmon's out there, and he could make some sense potentially as a rim protector. I'm surprised he's still out there, to be honest. One guy that I wish they would have signed, this could have happened a week ago, 2 weeks ago, Kyle O'Quinn. He was out there, and, Bobby, you're familiar. He was in New York, obviously. He's from New York. He received interest from the Toronto Raptors, the Dallas Mavericks. There were a number of teams showing interest, but for whatever reason, he didn't get signed. I feel like he could have really helped them because he's always been a guy that when given minutes, he can protect the rim. His per 36 numbers, I think he averages like 3 blocks a game. Like he does well in limited minutes off the bench. So I'm surprised that he didn't get signed by any team, and he would have been a good fit in Brooklyn. But it'll be interesting to see kind of what options are out there again, because really, aside from Dedmon, there's not a whole lot in the free agent market, which is why I think buyout season will be so important for them.
Some interesting NBA news too, Alex, this week, of course, with the NBA and the Players Association agreeing to hold an All-Star game in March 7th in Atlanta. I wanted to get your thoughts. Good idea, bad idea for the league to decide to move forward with an All-Star game?
I don't love it, to be honest with you. Like we're, on one hand, during games, we're separating players for dapping and hugging, and then, post game, and then you have an All-Star game, which I don't really understand it. I feel like it's not worth the risk. I know, the players. I'm sure the players had input in this through the NBPA and everything. So I mean, clearly the players signed off on it, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel worth it. Like it's the same thing whenever they were talking about doing a summer league over the offseason, and it was like, okay, well, yeah, we probably could make it happen, but is it really worth the risk? And ultimately, they decided no. And with summer league, I mean, granted, it's not as big of an event for fans, and it's not the same moneymaker that All-Star Weekend is, which at the end of the day, if we're being honest and addressing the elephant in the room, this is about money. At least with Summer League,
always about money.
It is always about money. Yeah. At least with Summer League, there's a chance for, teams to evaluate players. And a lot of guys have, their career and livelihood kind of riding on that, opportunity to be able to showcase their game. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I do get why the NBA is trying to offset some of the losses and putting money, first. I wouldn't have done it, and I'm sure we'll see some players opt out of it too, just because not only because of the COVID risk, but also in a season like this again, where there's more back-to-backs, 5 games in 7 days, and some of these brutal schedule quirks because of the condensed schedule. I wouldn't be surprised if some guys are like, no, I need that break. I want to just relax during those few days versus playing in an All-Star game. That wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out why would they have the game. I saw yesterday. I think De'Aaron Fox was against it, and yeah. I'm just like, it has to be for money. I mean, that's the only thing. I'm like, but I'm like, all season so far, you want these players to get away from each other, and now you want to bring them in, especially to, of all places, Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Florida, so I can tell you there's a lot of people that are acting like the pandemic's not even happening down here. Like I was talking to someone today, and I was like, the other day I got dirty looks for wearing a mask, and I'm like, that's how first of all you're in Florida, and but yeah, it's very confusing. It's definitely sending mixed messages, and I know they've tried to spin it and say, oh well, there's going to be a good cause, and we're going to do some stuff for charity and that kind of thing. And that is good. If you're going to do it, at least have something good come out of it. But at the end of the day, I think we all know it's about money.
So, Alex, I know a lot of Knicks fans probably heartbroken that I'm not suggesting that they might win the NBA championship this year, but they've had some good performances so far. I think last night, a nice effort for them. Julius Randle, he scores 27 points, ties a career high by hitting 5 threes. Since we're talking All-Star games, Knicks win. Randle has another big game. Do you think Julius is an NBA All-Star this year if we're going to have a game in March?
That wouldn't surprise me. He's been playing excellent basketball. Now, the fan votes came out, the first returns came out today, and I don't think he was getting many fan votes. So I think it'll be up to the coaches and to put him in. And one thing that's helping him is the fact that they're winning games. I think you see with the coaches usually when they're selecting their all-star reserves, they reward the guys that are on teams that are exceeding expectations and winning. They usually don't reward the guys that are at the bottom of the standing. So I mean, props to this Knicks team, man. I've been so impressed. Randall's playing out of his mind. The way that he's scoring the ball, shooting the ball, facilitating, he just looks like a different player out there. And, that's great for this Knicks team. Not only, from a win standpoint, but also just as a trade chip, as an asset too. That really helps with Randall. And then, I mean, I've been a big fan of Emmanuel Quickly. I'm one of the people that love watching him play. I think I want to see him starting and getting more minutes. But he's been exceptional. We had an article actually on the site a few days ago by Moke Hamilton. He wrote about Quickly's emergence and how not only is it great and give Knicks fans hope because of his play, but also it kind of shows that over the offseason, we saw this New York front office. They didn't go make the typical Knicks move that we all kind of think of, acquiring a Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook or some of the things that were kind of rumored, where in the past, Knicks regimes might have traded in their assets and went after a big player like that because it was kind of the sexy name, or they felt like, oh, it could lure, potentially lure a guy in free agency. Oh, sorry, my cat just decided to interrupt.
Samuel here on the podcast.
yes. Maybe the former Knicks regime would have done that, but instead, they're drafting the right guys and developing them. And, I think that's huge for this team, and hopefully we see more of that. But yeah, I've been so impressed with this Knicks team. Randall, Quickly, some of the role players are really stepping up. And I mean, props to Tibbs too, man. There were a lot of people making jokes about Tibbs in the past. So if you want to clown him when, his teams are struggling and you want to make the jokes about the big minutes and stuff like that, you have to give him props too when the team's way exceeding expectations, and he's doing a great job.
No, I told Bobby before the season started, I'm a big Tibbs fan, and I know Tibbs personally, so I know how good of a coach he is. One of the questions, like Dallas lost today, which makes me happy. I want Dallas to keep losing because we own their unprotected first round pick. And a question that Bobby asked me earlier was, do you see the Knicks winning the championship in the next 5 to 10 years in our lifetime?
Interesting. That's so tough. I guess what I would say is, if we're looking at the next 5 years, you look at the teams that are already together, like the cores that are already together, and you have to look at the Lakers, you have to look at the Nets, the Clippers. Now that team could be scary for a few years, but Paul George obviously extended his deal. But what's going to happen with Kawhi? What happens in Milwaukee with Giannis? Like, you look at the teams and their kind of window. I would say 5 years is probably a stretch, especially because they have so many young guys that they have to develop. But who knows what happens 10 years out? I'm definitely not going to say it's impossible in the next 10 years. Anytime, one thing that and Brian Windhurst said this on my podcast recently, and I want to credit him. I don't want to take his rant here, but the Knicks are always a threat to add a star player in free agency, just because right now they're adding young players and going through the draft and not going like hey, let's try to land the savior through free agency route like we've seen in the past. They're always going to be in the mix for star players because of the market that they're in. And really, if they're able to develop this young talent and quickly becomes the real deal, and Barrett looks really good, and Randall keeps playing well, they're only going to become more attractive to star players in the future. It's the same thing the Lakers did by developing Lonzo Ball and Brandon Ingram and these guys. It not only gives you trade chips that you can deal out for a star, but then you could be one of these organizations that, like the Nets did, like the Clippers did, has a scrappy team that builds a nice culture and all the little buzzwords we always hear about. And then a star comes and joins you because you're in a big market. So I would say if you're in a big market like that, you automatically have a better shot than a lot of these teams around the league that have no chance of landing a star in free agency. Like, there are teams out there, the Indianas of the world, their front office admits, look, we're not going to be a player in free agency, so we have to hit on our draft picks and make good trades. You don't have to say that about New York. They're absolutely a destination that could land a free agent in the future. And we've seen how quickly things can turn around. No one thought a few years ago the Nets would be a team with a super team in a big three. So we've seen how things can turn around in a big market. The Clippers are the same way. They were the laughingstock a few years ago. Granted, Lob City worked well, and they've had some other teams that have had success. But whenever you're in a big market, you're never that far away. So I'm not going to rule out the next 10 years, but I would say the next 5 years will be tough.
Alex, I'm going to let Ed, have that last question because we're up against it in terms of time, but we really wanted to thank you for taking some time with us tonight. Definitely rooting for Tampa Bay and Tom Brady come Sunday.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me. Hopefully Sunday night goes well and I'm not miserable.
And hold on, where do people, basketballnews.com, just want people to know every day you got something going on.
Thanks, man. Yeah, check out basketballnews.com. Check out our podcast network. Again, we got big names over there like Kenya Martin, Jadakiss, Atan Thomas, James Posey. I got my podcast, the Alex Kennedy podcast. We're putting out articles every day. Check out the site. And I appreciate you guys shouting out and showing us some love.
People can reach out to you too at alexkennedynba@gmail.com. And of course, they see your Twitter handle, but it's for those that are listening in, Alex Kennedy NBA.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate the time.
Later.
Terrific interview, Ed. And I think we've got our next guest pretty much on set, pretty much to hop in here and join us. And big time name here and a good friend of ours. Wanted to welcome in 14 years in the NBA, Mike James. Mr. James, what's going on?
What's going on, man? How you doing tonight, guys?
Mike, what's happening?
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to hang out with you guys, talk a little mess.
Yes. It's been a while, man. What you been up to?
Yes, man. I didn't know that, the second half of my life I would be a farmer. But yeah, that's I found myself enjoying that lifestyle and everything that comes along with it. But yeah, that's mainly what I've really been on, the last year.
Mike, I had to educate Edgar tonight coming into this interview. I know he knows a lot about your career, but he was actually surprised when I hit him with this statistic, and it is such a good one. The first undrafted player in NBA history to average 20 points per game in a season, 20.3 in 2006. That's a pretty good stat.
You know what's crazy about that stat? It's like everyone was like, amazed at what I did that year. I can remember after the playoffs that we played against Dallas. We went 7. That series, it really wasn't stop Yao or T-Mac. It was stop Mike James and we win the series. So I gained this confidence in those playoffs. Like, oh, man, I'm really nice like that. Like, that's when I really realized, like, you know what? These guys really can't guard me out here. So I can remember that summer I was at T-Mac's house, and I said to him, I looked him straight in his face. I said, the All-Star game is in Houston next year. Yao got all the Chinese votes. I ain't trying to be Batman. I ain't trying to be Robin. I ain't even trying to be Alfred. But if you put me on every guard, I promise you, I'm going to lock down the point guard position if you believe in me. He laughed at me. And I looked at him with like this crazy look on my face like, what's so funny? Like, I'm so serious right now. You know what I mean? And so when I got traded to Toronto, I could remember they traded me on media. They traded me the day after media day. So I did all of the rah-rah and, let's go Rocky and stuff. And the next morning, Jeff was like, we traded you to Toronto. I was about to take my daughter to school and then go to practice. And he said, we traded you to Toronto. And I said, Toronto? I said, wait. You tripping right now. I said, for who? He said, Rafer Alston. I said, Rafer? And who else? I said, I know you didn't just give me up straight up for just one-on-one for Rafer. He said, just for Rafer. I said, are you serious? Like, now I'm seriously like my jaw done dropped. Like, it's straight up. So, I can remember being in the car and all I kept thinking I was talking to my wife, taking my daughter, my one of my daughters was 2, the other one was 5. And I'm taking them to school and I'm thinking to myself like, Dad, how come no one really takes me serious? How come it's so difficult for someone to believe in me? And I started crying. And My wife was looking at me crazy. My oldest daughter was looking at me crazy. But my 2-year-old, she said, huh, Daddy a crybaby. Daddy's a crybaby. Daddy's a crybaby.
Motivation.
And so I took it as like, man, what is you crying for? Man, suck it up. Don't even trip. Whatever you felt like you was going to do for the Houston Rockets, you do because that's just who you are. So I built this anger, and I would never. It was such a like, I don't play for the name on the front of my jersey. I play for the name on the back of my jersey. And I'm always going to represent that name on the back of my jersey, and you're going to like me regardless because I know you really don't care. So I'm going to do me, however that feels. And it didn't really help me a lot of the ways because they always took it as an arrogance or a cockiness. But that 20, that's just who I was. That's just who I believed who I was. I remember that year I called Chauncey when they was playing against San Antonio in the series, and they was down like 2-0, and Tony Parker's killing them. And I'm like, I called him on like, yo, what y'all doing? Like, y'all tripping. I said, listen, if y'all don't do it this year, because we just won the championship the year before. So I was like, yo, if y'all don't do it this year, you know what I mean? I was like, it's a wrap next year. I said, ain't nobody guarding y'all, ain't nobody guarding T-Mac, and ain't nobody in the league gonna guard me. So, he was already like, Mike, whatever, get out of here. You're talking crazy. But that's just that 20 and all of that, it was just me just basically now just saying, listen, this is what I believe, and y'all get to see what my work is, and y'all get to see who I am as a player. So it was a surprise to the world, but it wasn't a surprise to me at all.
Mike, I was gonna say you played on, obviously a lot of teams. Can you talk about like the business side? Obviously, like, did that impact you when even like now do you want to get back into the league and be a GM or be a coach and stuff like that?
Of course, my peers, it was a difference because my peers respected me. Guys, the superstars, they went to sleep the night before when they knew they had to play against me. It was the front office where I was the second backup, third big guard, and fourth guard. Happy shit, I should even be on the team. It's the front office that put me on that level. So every front office that saw me, they would never give me the credibility or respect. But when I see LeBron James, he says, "What up, cousin?" When I see Steve Nash, I look at him in his eyes. I see him swallowing this spit. You see what I'm saying? And he know he gonna have a bad game tonight. But to the front office, I'm just happy to be here. But to my peers, they looked at me as on the same level as them. And even getting back into coaching, I tried to get into coaching. I coached with the Rockets a little bit, and I enjoy it. I would love to get back into it, but at the same time, my focus really isn't the game. It's more, if I'm going to get into the game, I'd rather teach the youth. I'd rather teach the young kids before they start building the bad habits. I could help them, you know what I mean, keep elevating their game and building and believing in their dream. And I like that because it's almost like everything I touch as a young player, they turn into something crazy. You know what I mean? And I've learned this even in the game. It's not the physical part of the game. You can shoot 1 million jump shots a day. You can do 10 hours of dribbling drills. But if you don't elevate mentally, you'll never believe the things that you're doing, and you'll revert right back to your old bad ways because it's comfortable and it's familiar. And it's only when you change the kid's mind, it's only when you change any player or any person's mind, then they believe in the things that they're doing. So there's a different swag, there's a different confidence, because the confidence no longer comes in their skill. Their confidence now comes in the work and what they've been putting into it. And now that they know that they know. And when you know that you know, you walk with a different, it's like I'm not banking on my skill. I'm banking on my work. And because of my work gives me the belief that I can be on the same level as the superstar. that don't work as hard.
Mike, when you have, I mean, to me, you had to be impressed this week when you see a guy like Fred VanVleet put up such a great performance for the Raptors, also being another guy that was undrafted. And for me, I think your performance in that season that we just spoke about, honestly, it paved the way for a lot of GMs to look at trying to find these kind of hidden gems that might have been overlooked in the draft.
100%. My struggle and my fight in my career, it really opened up the doors to make them believe, like, yo, I can find a superstar from nowhere. You know, Mike James is a proven fact of that. But nobody, there was always like a little fear for them to really believe that maybe he can. It was one of those things where, because me personally, I was a jack of all trades. I wasn't great at nothing. I was just good at everything. So I didn't stand out at nothing. I didn't have a great jump shot. I wasn't great athletically. I wasn't gifted fast. I wasn't gifted in speed. I wasn't all those things, but I was quick. I had a pretty good jump shot. I was pretty fast. I was pretty athletic. My defense was good. It wasn't great. Everything. So across the board, I was even. So when you look at the guys, a lot of other guys, they may be great in one area, but they trash across the board. But because they're great in this area, they will always give them the benefit of the doubt. So my thing was, you might beat me here, but when I'm equal across the board, eventually you're going to fizz out against me. When I see guys like Fred VanVleet, you know what? There's always diamonds in the rough. I always just say, do it again. Don't get bored. If this is who you are, man, don't stop. If you had 50 last night, you bet not have 9 the next night. You better stay on that level. And it's only person who's going to stop you from believing that you're on that level is yourself. And if you don't stop yourself, man, don't stop.
Mike, I beg to differ about your career because, and I think it's fitting that you got the Duquesne hoodie on tonight, because when you retire from college or leave, I shouldn't say retire, but leave the college ranks 1998, you at that time are first all time in steals for the program. So you say pretty good defender, but first all time in steals. And then at that point, the 10th all time leading scorer for Duquesne. So to me, you totally were overlooked. I mean, you should have been on an NBA roster and instead had to go overseas.
Funny story. I didn't even get invited to Portsmouth. But funny story. What was his name? Oh my goodness. I just drew a blank. But he was the coach that brought me in my freshman year. He's going to come to me. He was the coach that brought me in my freshman year. I didn't even get a scholarship. I came at the end of the year. They said, Mike, just come the first day of school. Trust me, you'll have a scholarship. I got my scholarship out the park. And he signed me. And he told me I was the worst basketball player he ever seen play basketball, and he'll rather have a walk-on start before he ever let me play the game because, like, our starting point guard got hurt or whatever. And so he gets fired. And that next year, I make third team All-Atlantic 10, whatever. Fast forward all of that. My third year in the NBA, he's the head assistant coach for the Boston Celtics, and I'm the starting point guard for the Boston Celtics. And all I can think about was those words that how he tried to crush me. And how he tried to tell me that I couldn't make it to this point. How as a freshman in college, he tried to tell me I would never see this side. And I used to make him rebound on purpose for me. Like, man, can you come rebound for me? And I was short and make it bounce and roll all the way down the other end. So he had to go chase it. But I never bring it up. I'll never put it in his face. But at the same time, and this was crazy, Jim O'Brien quit that year. He was the head interim coach for the Boston Celtics, and I was his starting point guard in the NBA. And I used to look at him in the huddles. I used to just be like, man, you tried to tell me I couldn't be here. Like, are you serious? And you my head coach right now in the NBA. Not my freshman year at Duquesne University. How crazy and ironic is that? And so it was always people telling me that I wasn't good enough. I could never be there. And I hated my career. I absolutely, one of the biggest regrets of my NBA career was I was in the CBA. I got cut by the Miami Heat. I was the final cut. They gave me like a partial contract, and I was like, cool. I'm about to go back overseas, you know what I mean, and make some money now. Portez was about to sign me. They're a EuroLeague team. I was about to make a bag. And Scott Cameron from the Heat, he said, Mike, if you go overseas, out of sight, out of mind, go to the CBA. And I always said, I will never play in the CBA. That is the worst dead dog league. I hate it. And when he said that, I said, CBA? I said, what do you mean CBA? So I went to the CBA, signed with the Rockford Lightning. My first 6 games, I probably shot 4 for 90. I remember we was in Saskatchewan somewhere, in South Dakota somewhere. And I had another game where I was like 3 for like 25. And everyone's talking about how Mike James is in the CBA and he's supposed to be out of here in the next week or 2. I call my wife and I'm in tears and I'm crying. Like, I guess I was a crybaby. Like, you know what I'm saying? I guess I was a crybaby. But I'm in tears again. And I said, I'm done. I hate this game. I'm done with basketball. I said, I cannot watch this. I refuse to watch myself perform like this. I said, I am not a 10-day cat. I refuse to see myself signing with a team for 10 days and then going back to the CBA. I said, nah. I said, we ain't doing this. So she was like, hold on, have faith, whatever. The next 2 weeks in the CBA, look it up. I'm averaging 36 points, 12 assists, 14 rebounds, 7 steals. I am destroying this league for the next 2 weeks. San Antonio calls me, and they called me to give me a 10-day. And I'm the player of the week the next 2 weeks in the CBA. They call me, they say they're going to give me a 10-day. I call someone from the Miami Heat. I'm excited about, like I've been there the whole summer, so I know some people that work in the front office. I'm excited about, San Antonio about to get me out of this dungeon. And I said, I'm going to the San Antonio Spurs. Like, I'm so happy. She said, wait. What? Hold on. I'm going to call you right back. I'm sitting there like, you just going to hang up on me like that? Like, all right, forget you then. Like, I ain't think nothing. 2 minutes later, Randy Funn calls me and is like, listen, I guarantee you for the whole year, come back to Miami, yada, 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 yada. I'm like, 10-day? Guaranteed the whole year? I done played 3 years in Europe. My first contract was $30,000. You know what I'm saying? Then my second year in the European League, I made $40,000. My third year, I made $90,000. And now here it is, 10-day, guaranteed for the rest of the year. Man, listen, we ain't even talking to Pop no more. Like, I don't even want to talk to you no more. That 10-day stuff, like, we ain't even talking about it. But I believe in my heart that was the worst decision I made in my career. I believe that what Pat Riley saw, this is what Pat Riley saw. He used to tell me this all the time. I used to feel like the illegitimate child. You should be happy you even in the league. I found you. You should be thankful that somebody even gave you a chance, yada, 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 yada. So I can remember, like, so this was always like how I always used to hear in my head when I played. I make any mistake, I make anything where I think that I'm the hot doo-doo right now, he would always remind me that you listen, you went to Duquesne, you was undrafted, don't get it twisted. I believe Pop would have saw me and would have been like, I think I got something. I think who this kid think he is, I believe it. And I believe that my career went the way it went because I don't believe that I would have been the man that I was supposed to be, who God called me to be. And I would have allowed this game and the success of this game to take me into a place that would have been separate for who I know who I am. And in that, I'm completed. And I'm grateful and I have gratitude, and it all makes sense. I was supposed to hate the game. I wasn't supposed to have fun. I wasn't. I remember I bought a jacket. It was a Muhammad Ali jacket. It was an Adidas jacket. And it said greatest of all time. I never wore it because that was my goal. Like, it was like, I can't wear it until I can arrogantly wear that. Like, but they would never put me on a court. And it's out here that I can't play. You know what I'm saying? But I'm nicer than y'all nicest guard. But you telling me I can't play? I got to sit on the bench. You mock me being the first one in the gym. You mock me being the last one to leave. I'm not doing it for y'all to see me. I'm doing it so when I step on the court, I'm going to annihilate you. That was my thing. Like, I'm just as nice as you, and I'm going to show you. I was 38 years old, starting in the NBA for the Dallas Mavericks. I took Darren Collison's position. When I first got there, I saw who they was in last place. I saw who the starting point guard was. I was like, oh, it's a wrap. I said, I'm gonna have his position by Christmas. I'm in practice arrogantly picking him up 94 feet, arrogantly talking crazy to him, arrogantly letting him know you can't guard me. But I'm 38. And I can remember I'm getting ready. Rick Carlisle finally gave me the starting position. And I'm getting ready for the game. Like my ritual that I do. I always took the early bus, always got ready, always got my shots up. And I do this crazy ritual before the game. And I'm doing my ritual. He calls me over and he's like, Mike, it's okay. You got the starting position. Calm down now. You don't have to work so hard. Like, what is wrong with you? You don't have to impress me no more. I said, Coach, listen, judge me by what I do out there. Don't judge me by my DOB, please. I said, please let me do me. I said, leave me alone right now. Like, if you want me to perform how you put me in a position to perform, let me mentally think that this is the stuff that I need to do to get me ready to go out there and think that that's the stuff that got me ready for the game. If somebody else don't need to do all of that, that's on them. But me personally, I thought in my head I needed to go ham before the game in order to get ready. So if that's what it takes for me to bang my head against the wall to get ready, and then I go out there and I kill, then there's nothing else to say. That year, I ran up on Damian Lillard. And I told Damian Lillard like this before the game. It was the craziest thing. I said, I heard you that young boy. I said, I'm 38 years old. You got an old man guard you tonight. You should bust his tail. I said, I want to see it. I said, I don't believe it. Every time he dribbled the ball, I would sit there and say, my man ain't doing that tonight. He ain't going nowhere. So this is how I carried myself. But it was the front office that made me look like I was Reggie. But my peers, man, they knew. When they was playing against me, man, Mike James ain't playing tonight. You better come correct or it's going to be a problem. One of my guys, I was on a podcast, my boy Say Word podcast, shout out to JoJo. He asked me a question. Name your top 5 all-time greatest New York guards. I named Rod Strickland. I named Kenny Anderson. I named the era that I know. And then I paused. And I stopped. And he said, what's wrong with you? There's a lot of guards from New York. You tripping right now. I said, I can't put nobody in my era before me because everybody my era felt me from every borough. So I basically said, other than Rod and Kenny Anderson, wasn't nobody from New York nicer than me. And I meant that. And every guard that think that they was up there, at some point, they was all in front of me. And they all remember when I was behind them. And I passed up all of them.
Mike, I think that's a great segue for us because it's hard to believe, but it was 9 years ago that I spoke to you on BronxNet, and I basically called you out because back home you had never lost a game, and we took Hoops in the Sun. I don't know if this jersey behind you is bringing back any sort of nightmares, but this is actually the official jersey of Kenny Satterfield, who also played in the NBA. We bring out this squad. We actually beat you in your hometown. Now, I will give you credit. Now, if anybody
hold on,
they go on YouTube and they check out the video that I did all those years ago. You had 70 points in that game. I think it was 70, 68, 70, 72. You carried your team, but they still lost. You had a whole bunch of NBA players in the game.
You know what happened? I blame our coach. He passed the ball to Jason. He passed the ball to Jay down low in the post, and he shot a brick. And you supposed it's an aura, it's an energy. This is my Michael, this is my MJ moment right now. You supposed to get the ball to MJ. They got the ball to somebody with different initials other than MJ. I couldn't believe it, but it's all good. You guys did get your first win against me in the park. Now, but I'll take that.
but we're here tonight. Edgar and I are actually going to give you a chance for redemption. We wanted to offer the rematch. That's what we wanted to offer. I know COVID might not allow street basketball in 2021, but if it does, we want the rematch either this summer or in 2022.
No, when we're able to have Mike James Day back home again, I look forward to it really because I'm really going to do something for my neighborhood, and I'm never going to stop it. And I'm going to continue to keep giving back to my community, letting these kids be able to see what success look like, feel it, touch it, and believe that, and look at it and be like, yo, he's no different than me. If he can do it, I can do it. Make it look easy. Make it look like it ain't something that's so far-fetched. And so I make myself tangible, and I'm always going to make myself tangible. Because I believe that I didn't have no one come back from the hood, you know what I'm saying, when I was a kid and come back and show us that, yo, we can do this also. We can become successful. We can become something bigger than what we are in our small communities. And so I just want to just always make them kids know. And then when they become successful, come back because it's going to be a next generation after you that's going to need someone to look up to believe that they can be the ones, because my name is only going to be a memory at some point. When they see the Mike James basketball courts and all of that's going to be a memory. But then it's supposed to carry over to the next generation, and now someone's supposed to be building it for the next ones that's coming up. And so that's just my heart. That's just my goal, understanding that it ain't about me. It's about the next youngins that's coming up after me.
Mike, there's a rumor going out that, Overtime is planning on doing a semi-pro division for high school kids where they will pay high school kids. I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. And do you think it's cool? Me personally, I think I'm against it, but do you think it's cool that they will do a semi-pro league for high school kids at this point?
I think the problem with today's society, no one wants to pay dues. No one wants to go through the cycle of life. They want to have their cake, but they just want the ingredients and then cake. Like they don't want to make the eggs and the batter and the flour and the water and they don't want to mix it. They don't want to put it in the oven for the time that it's supposed to be in the oven. Wait for the cake to be open. These are the ingredients, and I want cake now. I don't want to go through the process. And so there's a process. We all went through being broke. We all went through being hungry. It was the hunger that drove us the most. It was us being able. I was telling one of my friends the other day that the problem is our kids have too many pairs of Jordans. They don't get to look at the kid with all the Jordans and build the hunger inside them and build a drive because they want their own Jordans, and they don't get to play That's My Car because they get a car at 16. They don't get the window shop because they got their credit card to go shop. They don't get there's nothing that makes them drive and hunger and desire to have those things because they have them at the beck and call. And it's the fault of the parents. But how can you not, when you went through all of that as a kid and you struggled and you clawed for it and you finally give a success, you finally make some money, you have babies, they good babies, you love them, they make mistakes at times, but why can't they have the Jordans if they want the Jordans? Why can't they go to the best schools if they want to go to the best? Ain't that what you're supposed to do? But in the process, they lose the drive, they lose the hunger. So they don't want to. It's 10 o'clock. They don't want to go through the fight. They don't have no fight in them. And now they want to go to high school, and then they want to get paid after high school, and they want to but they're not ready yet. It's like freaking being a cake, and you've only been in the oven for a certain amount of minutes. You're gonna fall. You're not ready. You got to continue to keep growing. You got to go through college. You got to get. Are you nicer than the kids in college? Like, how you gonna be able to get some money before the college kids get money? If anybody gonna get money, the college kids should be getting money. Why should they build a semi-pro play league for a bunch of high school kids that's only gonna try to play like Stephen Curry? Like, nobody wants to see that trash basketball. The only one that makes that work is Stephen Curry and Damian Lillard. Other than that, everyone else looks trash doing step back and James Harden. Other than that, I don't want to see nobody shooting daggone step back 3-pointer. Well, how come can't nobody get to the basket no more? How come if you go 0 for 2 from the 3-point line that you can't say to yourself, I need to get fouled now. I got to go get a free throw. I got to go get a layup. I got to go get a bucket. Can't nobody go get a bucket no more. Everybody just shoot threes now. Don't nobody. And if you're going to see high school kids, if you're going to watch semi-pro high school players, that's all you're going to watch. You're going to watch no defense. You're going to watch no systems. You're going to watch kids that don't even know how to play basketball no more. A whole bunch of AAU basketball players, high-flying dunks and alley-oops and three-pointers and a lot of turnovers and misses. Don't nobody want to see that. That's going on in the NBA right now. So if it's bad basketball at the highest level, trickle it down now.
Mike, in terms of your career, again, we talked a little bit about the college days. I think it's important for the fans at home, too, to know about that success in the sense of that number 13 jersey is now retired by Duquesne, which is a huge achievement for someone, of course, that had such a great career in the college ranks. But I think when we talk about championships, you got a chance to win one overseas in Austria, but you also got a chance to win the big one, of course, in the NBA. And I wanted to focus in on that with this question. So in 2004, you end up winning the championship with the Detroit Pistons. I wanted to get your fondest memories from that season because I'm sure a lot of fans will remember that nickname of the Pit Bulls with you and Lindsey Hunter.
We were a brotherhood, seriously. Funniest story is I remember I used to always tell Chauncey and Rip that I was nicer than them, and I used to kill them when I used to play with other teams when I was with Miami and Boston before I signed with Detroit. I used to always tell Rip, like, man, I used to kill y'all. Like, you used to, like, and I did, but they used to always play, Mike, you wasn't like that. Mike, you wasn't playing like that against us. So it was the end of the regular season. We're about to play Milwaukee in the playoffs. Rip is like, yo, let's have a team huddle, guys. Let's go into the locker room. Let's have a serious powwow before the playoffs start. Let's get prepared. So I'm thinking, it ain't nothing. They play a 5-minute video of all my turnovers 3 years of the teams I played for against the Detroit Pistons. And it was nothing but Mike James bloopers, 5 minutes. And I'm sitting there, they laughing, rolling around the table, they're crying. And I'm sitting there the whole time like, ha, ha, ha. Joke's on me. For the remainder of my career, every time I saw Rip and Chauncey, it was like a bull seeing a red, seeing the red little thing. Like, it was something different when I saw them, and it all went back to that video. And me reminding them that I was just as nice as y'all. Don't get it twisted. Like, I gave them 38. That was my career high. But it was always like every time I played against Chauncey, it was always a battle. I respect those guys. We was a brotherhood. And it was funny, but that's the type of friendship that we had. We had a friendship on the court, and we also had a friendship off the court. I never experienced that type of collaboration amongst teammates than with the Detroit Pistons. It was almost like I went to other teams looking for it, and it almost like disgusted me that I could never find it again. And it was nothing but just real cats. Had nothing to do with money, had nothing to do with status, had nothing to do with playing time, had nothing to do with just genuine people. And the craziest thing is I never experienced genuine people on one team again. And I spent 13 years in the league.
And you played in one of the most memorable games ever, Kobe's 81-point game. And you was the second leading scorer of the game with 26 points. Can you talk about that experience?
You know what? The craziest thing about that game is at halftime, I was like, okay, Chris Bosh ain't really playing well. Let me get Chris going. Let me get Jalen going. Let me start getting Mo Pete some open threes. So in my head, I lost my aggressiveness offensively when it came to scoring. And I started thinking, when you watch the game again, because it's going to come on for the next 100 years, like especially on the anniversary. But if you watch it, the difference is not that I lost my aggressiveness offensively to score, because I'm still being aggressive, but I'm looking to pass. I'm looking to get guys open looks, and everyone's missing. It's the craziest thing. So I'm thinking I'm going to get Chris his open looks, and he missing layups. He missing dunks. They missing open. I mean, I'm getting cats open threes. Like they can go like this with the 3-pointer. Like, break their fingers and then shoot it. That's how open they are. It's hitting the front of the rim. Kobe's getting the rebound, going and one the other way. Like, we're not paying attention to all the misses that we're doing in the third quarter. He's like, the Lakers aren't scoring. He's scoring in the third quarter. And it just so happened when you look up, it's like, damn, Kobe got like 60 right now. Like, wait a minute. Something ain't right now. Like, and we don't have no idea how to turn this. Actually, it's not that we don't have no idea how to turn this water hose off. We don't do nothing to turn the water hose off. We just look at the water hose just overflowing, and it's a whole team, maybe 13, 14 of us, plus the assistant coaches, and we just sitting there, and we just watching a broken water hose just flowing water, and we're just like, it's flowing water. Yeah, I know. I see it. There's a lot of water coming out. Like, yeah, like we're not saying, okay, let's get this tool. Let's try to fix this. Let's try to wrap this around. Okay, that don't work. Let's do this right here. What if you pull this right here? No, we just go, yeah, it's leaking right there. I know, right? Yeah, it's leaking. Yeah. And we just sit there and just take it how Ice Cube said Eazy-E took it in his song. Just say
my favorite part. When it's games like that, like what are the guys saying on the bench, or like after the game is over and you see that he scored 81? Like what?
I hated everybody. I hated my whole team. I hated being a part of the Toronto Raptors. My room is burning the next morning. I blame the coach. I blamed everybody. I was pointing fingers. I was sitting there like, him did that. Him had 45 on him. Him wasn't thinking nothing. I was sitting there like, listen, our coach didn't change one strategy. He didn't tell us trap. We played zone and we played soft man. And we put 6'2" guards on him. We put no one tough on him. And we just let Kobe. It was almost like it was written. And someone gave Sancho the memo. Like, okay, here's the script. Listen, buddy, wink, wink. Just read the script. Leave all the other stuff out of it. Like, shh. And that was it. We don't know. Only him, Kobe, and whoever wrote the script and gave it to him and made him read it.
Did you and Kobe ever have interaction in that game or after
Man,
talking about it years later?
Talking to that man about that, like that, no, in my eyes, it's like it never happened. Like, I don't remember. I don't know what you're talking about. It's only when somebody say, aren't you Mike James, Toronto Raptors, 81? It's like, you know what? 2 middle fingers to you, buddy. Like, but other than that, that's not a topic of conversation that I start off like a first, like, you know, first day that we get to meet and we interact with one another. That's not the conversation that I'm going to start off. Maybe not even middle or even end with. It has to be something where a person says, wait a minute. Toronto Raptors. Then it's like, okay, middle fingers. But yeah, let's talk about it. Screw you.
Mike, you definitely have a knack for basketball and you have a knack for talking as well. Wanted to get your thoughts on your new podcast. We appreciate you taking time with us tonight on our podcast, but you've also got Mission Bound with Tom Elmore, and you're getting a chance to do the same thing that we're doing.
Man, it's awesome, man. It's exciting getting to talk about life experiences, you know, faith, what people are doing in their life today. How are they making different changes in the influence of the people around them? What are they doing? You know, we may talk, if we're talking athletes, we may talk about your career, but it's not really your career that I'm really interested in. But I know people like talking about their careers. People like talking about, you know, the history of who they was. But at the end of the day, I want to know who you are today. I want to know what you're doing today. I want to know what experiences from yesterday was able to build the character in the man or the woman that you are today or trying to become. You know what I mean? You may not be that person yet. You may not be there, but that's all right. Are you in the process of trying to get there is the main question. And so this is the main reason, and it's fun. And I get to talk to athletes, and I get to talk sports. I get to talk junk. I like talking. You know what I mean? So I get to talk. I get a microphone, and I get to, hey, I'm talking. One thing I've learned, two things. Well, in ninth grade, I won Best Dancer, and can't nobody take that away from me. To this day, I still tell people, man, listen, dog, I won Best Dancer in ninth grade. Like, don't get it twisted. Like, don't ever get it twisted. Like, skills is nice. Like, you know what I'm saying? Ninth grade solidifies me. And from sixth grade all the way to the senior year, I won Class Flirt and Class Chatterbox. They were mines in the bag.
Now, Mike, I just want to say, you know, ever since, you know, I met you, I forgot what team. Every time you would come into the city and play against the Knicks and talking to you at, you know, during shoot-arounds, you always had this smile and you always had this energy. And then I remember going to Amityville and shooting you out there. You had this smile. I mean, one thing that I always respected is that your whole give back, and you love giving back, and you know you love just educating people. What's the future look like for Mike James?
The future is bright, man. It's about my legacy. It's about building a brand that my babies can be able to eat off for the rest of their lives. My family can, you know, there's a scripture that says God blesses every family with someone that breaks the generational curse of poverty. And the question is, are you that person? Which one is that? And so I believe that I was destined to be that one that breaks that chain of poverty in my family bloodline. And my kids now, see, I have my kids already thinking, you know, on the business mindset and money talk, where I've never had conversations about money with my family. I've never had the freedom or the confidence or the know-how to even start a conversation or them to even give me or feed me information. And for me to be able to start, and that's more than generational wealth, is not just building your wealth for your family, but now teaching your kids how to build wealth for themselves as well. And them now growing in a way where they're now understanding how to become business business minding and business savvy for themselves, where they can now teach their kids. And that's what generational wealth is also, because I'm building a brand that started with me, that before me, it was never even talked about or thought of. You see, and this means so much more to me because I understand no matter how long I'll be on this earth, my life on this earth is short-lived. So what I do in the process, it means so much more than just trying to live it for myself, than just focusing on myself. So I really focus really on my brand, my babies, my business. You know, I'm a farmer. I have a hemp farm. And so I'm on the farm and I'm putting in the work and I'm out there trenching and doing the on the tractors and so it's so fulfilling for me. And it's such a blessing to be able to be a part of what I'm doing, but I can now teach my kids how to grow, and I've given them business models that they can take for themselves and start generating capital for themselves even at early ages. And so no one taught me this, but I'm able to teach that to someone else. That's generational. That's generational wealth for me. And that means that's what the future of Mike James is, you know, teaching kids how to play basketball, teaching kids not really just how to play basketball, but how to be grown-ups, how to take a game and make that game open up so many doors for you. But in the process, try to be the greatest at it. Don't just try to be good at it. See what happens. You know what I mean? You just might so happen to be that one. Who would have ever thought? Everyone was nicer than me. Trust me when I tell you, everyone from New York City was nicer than me. I went to Redemption Christian Academy. It was nothing but the nicest, baddest kids in New York City that went to Redemption Christian Academy. I'm from Amityville, Long Island. I started at Redemption Christian Academy. How do I do that? There was always something inside of me that people just didn't understand or they just couldn't gravitate to. But I was just, man, Amityville is just as wild as any Brooklyn borough. Amityville gives you what any other borough in New York City gives you. So I had the same energy. I had a New York state of mind. You know what I mean? So I had to learn that having a New York state of mind is not the right way of living. Like, that's not right. Like, I remember one time I went to the store in Queens and I just said, good morning to this dude. He looked at me, he stopped and he looked at me and he looked me up and down and he grilled me. And I'm sitting there like, you ready to fight? Like, for real? Like, my bad, dude. I said to a woman, good morning, ma'am. She grabbed her purse, stopped, paused for like 3 seconds and looked at me and was like blinking, like, Ninja, is you talking to me right now? And I'm like, ma'am, my bad. But that's the anger and that's the New York state of mind. And it's only when you go outside of New York that you realize you don't have to live with that anger no longer. You don't have to live with that. I grew up my whole entire life next to neighbors that I didn't even know, like 15, 20 years, and I still don't know them. Won't even look their way. You stay out my way, I'll stay out your way. Don't the ball come on my side, I might knock it over, I might not. It might be mine now. Who knows? Like, we're going to see. You know what I'm saying? You should have kept your ball on your side of the fence and we good. But at the end of the day, this is how you just learn to live as a New Yorker. But these ways don't necessarily mean that they right, but they work in New York. But does it work anywhere else? And so I had to learn these things. And so I think most New Yorkers need to get out of New York and understand that life is bigger than the Big Apple.
Great
now
interview
country.
tonight, Mike. Appreciate you taking the time.
Man, I appreciate you guys, man. Thank you.
Mike, I'm gonna call you tomorrow. Because I definitely want to do something with the kids that I definitely, you will love.
Love.
Mike James, everybody.
Appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Hey, we went a little overtime tonight, but definitely was great stuff. Really enjoyed the show.
Yes, Mike is hilarious.
He is definitely a character.
Yeah,
I was thinking to myself, I don't know if the fans at home could see my hat because it was getting kind of blurred out by the light, but you know how it says support your local daredevil,
Because I love motorcycles, and I'm definitely a daredevil. I think I need to get a hat, Ed, that says support your local podcaster. You know, because if we're going to go overtime every week, we could use a little love from the fans at home. I don't know, maybe just a thought.
Yeah, I think Mike gave us some gems. Alex gave us some gems. I think step into the arena next Thursday. We're back, and next Wednesday we got the Commissioner's Corner with Joe Cruz and BG. So check them out next Wednesday. And I don't know who their guest is, but so far they've been they had a great interview yesterday with Epiphany Prince.
So good, and definitely big ups to Randy Cruz and the Cruise Control Podcast Network.
Facts.
So I think that pretty much. If you got any final thoughts here, because we're definitely we're way over time.
That's hopefully Sunday's a good Super Bowl. That's all. I don't care who wins. Honestly, I just want to see a last possession.
Same here.
And tune in next week. Step in the arena.
So I think it's a good place to wrap things up. Appreciate all the fans joining us tonight on Step in the Arena. We want to thank Chief Content Officer at BasketballNews.com, Alex Kennedy, 2004 NBA champion and 9th grade best dancer, Mike James, for being our guest tonight. For Edgar Burgos, I'm Bobby C. We'll see you next Thursday.